Hello and welcome to the Pig and Whistle Tales from Azeroth. As always here at the Pig and Whistle Inn in Stormwind, I go through a variety of subjects with regards to World of Warcraft. I grab a bottle or a pint, sit back and enjoy. This episode, we'll be going over a few things. I want to talk about PvP versus Mythic Plus, PvE, stuff like that. And I also want to go over a couple bits and bobs that I've found on the forums. Now, these are very broad, sort of general discussions, but they are very intriguing to dissect, go over, maybe give my thoughts and opinions on. So, we'll start off with the weekly news. We have the Aggregation of Horror as your world boss for the week. This is located within the Ringing Deeps. You have Classic Time Walking. This keeps fluctuating between Classic Time Walking and different Time Walking. I think it's going to be Kata Time Walking next. So yeah, I'm not too sure what's happening there, but I think it was meant to be Classic Time Walking throughout the entirety of the anniversary, but who knows what's happening. It is what it is. Now, Warsong Scramble is your brawl for the week. This is very much, you need 10 flags to win the Warsong Scramble, and there are 3 flags that you can pick at the same time. Quite fun, quite a different take on Warsong Gulch. Warsong Gulch still being the most iconic and best battleground in the game since forever. Alright, it's just unanimously the best battleground in the game. Don't give me this Outshine Valley, that definitely isn't. A Wrathy Basin, no, that's awful. You know, it's Warsong Gulch, let's face it, Warsong Gulch. Devour and Fortitude are your mythic affixes for the week. This is very much, you get a debuff on you every sort of minute or so. You either dispel it or the healer has to pump enough heals to get off the healing absorb. Otherwise, the mobs will be empowered and they will heal for a bit of their health. So make sure these don't go off. If you have a decurse, dispel, anything along them lines as a DPS, please just do it. It will help out your healer so much. It takes 1 global. It's not that big of a deal. Just use it, all right? Not that tough. This goes for warriors as well. If you're running the bitter sweetness or bitter immunity talent, whatever it's called, for some reason, please just use that, as it will dispel it. It is classed as a poison, disease, curse, everything. Okay, so please just help out your healer. So, what I wanted to start off with is Mythic Plus and arenas. I've done my fair share of both this season. I'm very much doing more Mythic Plus at the moment than I am PvP. The reason for this is because PvP, firstly, no one plays it until the very end of the season, as there's no point in pushing, which makes no sense because, you know, they have a system in Mythic Plus where you can constantly keep pushing every single week and every single day, but in PvP, you can't, because once you get to your bracket, you're essentially your max that you can get to, you're not going to get much further until the next month, because inflation will kick in over the course of the 4 weeks, and then you'll go up another like 50 rating or 100 rating, however much, you know, you'll be around the same sort of point. So yeah, it's a bit annoying, but it is what it is. Now, for me personally, it's tough to compare the two, but I can. I have done both of these, both at very high levels of play, and decently consistently. So arenas, I think, are tougher. Now, I'm not saying that this is like to shit on Mythic Plus players or PvE players. Mythic Plus, in its own right, is a very unique set of skills, and it's very cool. But if I came from PvP and I jumped into a group of friends who do PvP mostly, okay, this group of friends aren't bad as well. They're clearing heroic Narubar Palace. They might even look at doing some mythic Narubar Palace. But yeah, they're not a bad group of friends. They aren't awful at the game. They are good at the game. But in PvP gear, I know my rotation. And it's as simple as you sidestep this mob. Oh, this mob has a frontal, so just don't stand in front of it. Oh my god, this mob is turning towards me and using a cleave. Just don't be in front of it. Okay, he puts swirlies on the ground, you move out of it. It's so scripted, and that's the difference between it. Now, you're going to say, oh my god, of course it's scripted, it's NPCs. Yeah, well, yeah, you would be correct. But my point is, in PvP, every single situation you have not seen. I've played so much PvP, and I've not seen every single situation in WoW yet. Okay? but which means that you have to like think on your feet a lot more. You got to be very reactive and yet proactive at the same time. Whereas in Mythics, you can be very proactive. Okay, you don't have to do much. You know what's coming. Like for Missive Tina Scythe, as an example, I know that for the first boss, you simply have to kill the Droman. Okay, and you can cleave down the big boss, and then when he has a damage increase on him, you simply pop your cooldowns. It's that simple. All right. Now, I know that the Droman has a few abilities. He has one where he puts swirlies on the ground, simply move out of them. I know he does up to 2 to 3 swirlies on the same player. And I know that the other boss has a fear. So you don't want to be around these swirlies when he fears, otherwise you'll run through them. That's it. That's the boss, and I know it inside out, and it's very simple to counteract these things. Whereas in PvP, I'm getting chased down by a hunter and a druid, and yeah, I'm trying to avoid a stun trap, a clone, a like typhoon or a vortex, or I'm trying to avoid everything, and yet you can't predict it all. You can't predict when he's going to throw this trap. You have a good idea, but higher level hunters will, instead of throwing a freezing trap, they will throw a knockback trap or a tar trap instead to try and bait out something. So high level priests, I'll give you an example. As a mage, you have Fade to get through, and you have Shadow Word Death to get through before you can polymorph a target fully. Now, they'll usually Fade first, and then the second polymorph, when you're casting it, they'll use Shadow Word Death. Now, Shadow Word Death, if you don't know, it deals damage back to the person who casted it if it does not kill the target. So, if they are to use it on someone and they get sheeped, it will deal damage to them, breaking the sheep. Okay? So you have to bait out these two things as a mage before you can even get the polymorph. And it's these sort of things that you don't have to do in PvE. Like, yes, you can Shadow Word Death, but you'd usually use that for just damage purposes or killing. You'd never have to use Fade. Okay? Fade is a very niche cooldown in PvE. And it will just reduce the sort of distance that a mob will see you at. But the thing is, you have Mind Soothe for that as well, so it doesn't really matter. It's kind of non-existent Fade, for the most part anyway. Now, for PvP, you're using Fade quite often, usually like 10, 15 times a game, okay, depending on how long the game goes, the length of the game, stuff like that. But you're using it very, very often, and it's a very good cooldown for you. But again, people wouldn't realise that going from PvE to PvP, but people who do PvP will realise the value of the spells more, I think, because yes, Fade is used in certain situations, but people don't realise it when they go from PvE to PvP, just how good it is in comparison. Don't get me wrong, people are amazing in both PvE and PvP. The PvE side, I could only DPS. I feel like if you put me in an MDI group, and you go over the tactics and we've ran the dungeon like multiple times, I feel like I could give you a very decent looking MDI like performance as a PvP player. Genuinely, I think I could. I could only do it on one class and one spec, but I can do it on a very decent level. Now, what I do have to say is, for learning your rotation, I think that's very good for PvE basis. But you know what? Yeah, in PvE, it's easier to get to grips with a different class and learn their rotation, because if you know all of the mechanics, you know all the mechanics. There's nothing that's going to happen to you about it. You just know that, oh, this guy's got a frontal cone. We just dodge it and do our damage rotation. Very simple, isn't it? For PvP, though, if you want to learn a new class, obviously you have to have some skill in that class, but you've also got to survive. You've got to know your survivability. So you've got to keep track of your blinks, your displacement, your ult time, your ice block, your wall, your invis, many different things, whilst trying to do the most damage that you can. And I think that that's where the difficulty lies. I think that the defensive side of PvE players is nowhere up to scratch in comparison to the PvP players. I just don't think it's comparable, in my honest opinion. I've seen so many people who do PvE die doing stupid shit, just because they didn't pre-press something or understand like the limitations that your character can take in comparison to PvP players. Again, it's just a comparison that I make. I think that both of them are very good and very good pieces that make the World of Warcraft like endgame anyway very good. They make each element of World of Warcraft very good, both PvE and PvP. PvP could use a bit more love, I'm not going to lie. It does feel a little bit neglected. It feels like Delves have come in and just trying to kick it out of the way, and it's kind of upsetting, to be honest. But they both have a purpose in WoW, and they both serve their purposes amazingly. I just wish PvP got a few more maps, maybe. Would be nice, because Mythic Plus does get like several more dungeons a year, so it would be nice to have a few more maps, potentially, I also would like to see a bit more PvP side anyway, the system change. I really would like to see a system change for PvP. The one that I have in mind is Overwatch. Overwatch 1 PvP change. So you had a 0 to 5,000 score, and whatever score you were put in a bracket. So if you were 3k, you were Diamond. If you're 3.5, you were Masters. I want to see that sort of bracket. And obviously, the people who are the highest rating at the end of the season will get the 0.1%. But this incentivizes people to constantly push their rating throughout the season rather than just at the end of the season, because it kills the game. It kills PvP mid-season because people just aren't playing. They're waiting until the end of the season when inflation is the highest to push, and it just makes no sense. It allows people, look, if you're worried that people, they'll just do it so early and then not play. No, PvP players want to play. It's just stupid not to until the end of the season. And if people were to push their mains, then they can work on ults. They can play on ults and have some fun. There's ults. We are actually allowed to ult in World of Warcraft now because they've made it user-friendly, which is really, really good and something that should have been done back in Shadowlands, back in BFA, back in, before then. But yeah, it's really good. Both aspects, both Mythic Plus and PvP. I think, as a personal opinion, PvP translates better over to PvE rather than PvE over to PvP, because PvE is very scripted. PvP certainly is not scripted. Okay. But yeah, that's just my small thought on it. I see this sort of conversation come up so many times on the forums, just in general discussion with guildies, with like friends and stuff. And yeah, I just thought I'd share my sort of ideas on it. But I want to move on to the forum post now. Now, this one's a bit weird. So why aren't you enjoying the War Within? So let's hear it. Pre-order early access made 5 of our raiders quit. It was horrible for those just watching your guildmates have fun, leveling up. They just sat there in Valdrakken, twiddling their fingers. I had 3 level 80s before they could even play. Worse, they nerfed leveling at the same time. Sadly, it was too successful. I can see them doing again for Midnight when Ian was asked about it. You could see it wasn't his idea or felt comfortable about it. Okay, firstly, if you have 5 people quitting because they didn't pay for the early access, look, I didn't pay for early access, mainly because I didn't see a point in leveling. There was no point to leveling. Congrats, you got 3 level 80s before the expansion came out, but you could do nothing. Mythic Plus wasn't unlocked. PvP wasn't unlocked. You simply just leveled the characters. So people who didn't have early access didn't miss out on much. And again, you can just watch your friends play. Like, some people enjoy that. I enjoy watching people play the game. I know some people don't. But again, you didn't miss out on much. So 5 people to quit because of that is kind of pathetic and stupid. I'm not going to lie. I don't like the main story being time-gated. I feel it's antiquated. What's antiquated? So many free-to-play games give me everything. Why is it when I'm paying full box price plus sub, I'm locked out of content I played for? They time-gate stuff so that people think that there's content that comes out. It's one of them things, because people complain about, oh my god, I'm going to rush through everything in WoW, and then there's nothing. then there's nothing to do. And it's like, oh my God, release the next patch, Blizzard. Blizzard takes so long, all that bullshit. And it's just like, you're the one that rushed through it. This is why, like, you're not having fun because you rushed it. Just take your time, play some ults, gear up something, you know. The gearing system is horrible. Yes, you get to 6:10 fast and then literally waiting for a Wednesday reset or how many tunes. I'm demotivating and just makes sense. Why am I doing this? There's so many amazing games out there. I could be playing and doing the same dungeon again and again and again. Why do I need Valor Stones to upgrade my gear anyways? Like, there's so many levels of crests. Why add more BS to a BS system? Okay. Firstly, the Valor Stones and the crests, I think, are very good. I think that they are a very good way of leveling up your character, because the Valor Stones you get from completing any sort of dungeon and delve and stuff like that. The crests you get for doing a specific Mythic Plus dungeon. So you get a certain type of crest for doing a Mythic 0 to a Mythic 4, and then a Mythic like 5 to 8, and then a Mythic like 9 to 10, you know, that kind of deal. This in turn allows you to keep pushing keys, and it makes it a bit more difficult, and it keeps your gear at the sort of level that you want. Okay? Now, this means that the gear that you have is at the same sort of rating as the dungeon. Okay? I don't get why people are complaining about PvE gearing when people don't realise the state that PvP gearing is. So, PvP gear, I need 2 embellishments still. I need to gem my gear, which costs so much honour and so much time. Yeah, I need to get enchants. And guess what? I don't even get, like, gold for doing PvP. You guys do for PvE. You can sell pieces of gear that you don't need anymore or whatever. But the thing is, we were conquest capped, which is stopping you from getting your best gear until about 2 weeks ago. Okay, when did the season come out? It came out in like September, I swear. So we were still conquest capped before like you guys had finished Mythic Narubar Palace, had done gearing like 5 different characters. So it's ridiculous that PvE players complain about gearing when I myself don't even PvE, and it's taken me no time at all to get like 618 item level and do decent amounts of damage. Okay? Like 618, you might think, oh, that's pathetic. Yeah, I don't do a lot of Mythic, but it's taken no time at all. I got geared quicker in PvE before I fully geared PvP. Okay? And I do no Mythics, and I do loads of arenas. But because I'm literally stopped from getting my currency, I can't get the gear that I want. How is that fair? I don't want to see PvE players complain about gearing. Okay? I don't. It is ridiculous, and if you want to complain about something, go complain about PvP gearing, because I bet you guys will not like it. Okay? And you will see that PvE gearing is a breeze in comparison. Okay? Please, do it. I would very much be interested in seeing. So, let's carry on with it. The gearing system... Okay, no, we did that. Raiding. I like the raid, but it looks samey and meh. Well, samey. I mean, yes, the raid is taking place within a building. It's taking place within a palace. There's a theme to every raid. There is a theme. Black Temple, for example, you go up through the sewers into the castle and stuff, but it's all like the same sort of colour palette and stuff like that. Icecrown Citadel, one of the best raids in the game. Same kind of colour palette, you're just ascending this tower. You know, all of the raids look samey. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But they need to break up raids. The huge 8 to 12 boss raids need to go. Give us like 3 raids broken up, different themes and settings to avoid boredom. Yeah, I know, the next raid in 11.1 is going to be a big old raid again, all goblin themed. I'm telling, we will all be sick of it after week 6 of seeing the same thing. Variety is a spice of life after all. It's why we don't eat the same thing every day. Okay, firstly, I would gladly eat pizza, you know, or pasta or whatever every single day. Amazing. Secondly, I feel PvE players are a little more privileged and entitled. Okay? So let's put this into perspective. PvP came out in 2007. Okay? 2007, you had arenas. You had a few arenas. Since then, you have had probably around 10 arena maps added. Something along them lines. In that same time span, you have had Wrath of the Lich King dungeons. You have had Cataclysm dungeons. You have had Mists of Pandaria dungeons. Warlords of Draenor, BFA, Shadowlands. What was the one before this? Dragonflight. You have had dungeons from all of them expansions. Not to mention, you get more raids in one patch than we get, like, arena maps or battleground maps for that matter in a single expansion. Okay? In Dragonflight, we got one arena, which was not Kadana Offensive. Okay? In Dragonflight, you got 3 raids. So, you're telling me that you want 3 separate raids for one patch? Does that not seem entitled from a PvE player's perspective? Because I look at this and I think that some raids that are 8 to 12 bosses long are quality. They are meant to be raids. They are meant to be real tough challenges, and you feel like you're going through a gauntlet and working your way up to something like Icecrown Citadel, like Blackrock Foundry, like multiple things, like multiple raids that you come across. Breaking it down into 3 raids means you get 3 to 4 bosses like each time, and you're not forced to do every single boss. You can walk in there and do like 3 bosses and then leave and come back another day. You're not forced to do every single boss. But asking for 3 raids, like, per patch? Yeah, no. I think that's very entitled. And if you're quitting over it, that's even worse. That's even more pathetic, in my honest opinion. Look, I get that some people want different things, but you get a raid each patch. PvP players get one map each expansion, if that. It's ridiculous. And yet, yes, it's annoying and frustrating as a PvP player, but you don't see anywhere near as much this entitlement. You don't see people going, we deserve 3 arena maps each patch. Like, do you not think that people would be like, that's ridiculous, that's so stupid, no one plays arena enough to do that? But, like, saying, oh my god, give us 3 raids each patch, that's not as, like, entitled or stupid? No, it isn't. Yeah, that's absolute lunacy to think that you get 3 raids each patch. 8 to 12 bosses is very good, in my honest opinion, and I think most of the player base will be okay with different themes, like, of the raid. Like, the next theme is a Goblin Palace. Really cool. It's got all the, like, Goblin hot tubs, the Goblin architecture. It's really cool. It's like Kazan, like the starting area. Very, very cool. You had the Vault of the Incarnates, which was a dragon prison, and you had to break them out. You had, obviously, a Midrasil, which was very night elf colours, vibrant blues, green, stuff like that. So you get a huge variety in raids. Again, you don't need that every single patch, okay? You have more than enough throughout the expansion as a whole to get the variety that you need. So I don't know where this is coming from, but it is ridiculous in my honest opinion. Look, that is the end of that post, but what I do want to say is both PvE and PvP exist in WoW for a reason. They both have their place. I just think PvP is a lot tougher to get into than PvE. That's all. So with that, I will end it there. Thank you all very much for listening. Do check out all of the socials down below. Constant stuff happening over there. Even check out the Etsy shop. Constant stuff going up there. I believe I have a storage dragon egg actually going up there either today or tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that as well. There's actually many good things up there that you can get for a Christmas present or just for yourself. Many bits and bobs there. So do check it out. It'll be really appreciated. But again, thank you all very much for listening. And go with Valor, friend. Goodbye all.